Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Unfiltered Vet Discussions. We are so glad you are joining us today. My name is Kelly, and Phil and David and Beth are joining me as well. Please visit us at unfilteredvetdiscussions.com. Follow us on your favorite podcast and social media platforms. We'd love to hear from you um, and just see what you're also interested in. Today, we were musing before we pushed the record button. Um, David and I are now empty nesters, and we were talking about school, and then some other things came around, and we were talking about mistakes and how when you have mistakes, there's tends to be two sides of the coin,
Or
right?
more.
Or more, right? You kind of slice and dice it in there. And how do you react to those mistakes? And, it started because David and I were talking about, oh, well, how do you let freshmen make mistakes in a safe environment so they can learn and grow, um, but not over, drive the car over the cliff. So, David, do you want to take it from here?
Well, and as professionals, we all make mistakes, or most of us make mistakes in our professional world, not just our personal world. And certainly the veterinarians, you make a mistake, there can be huge consequences, and people jump on mistakes. So the question, I think we were bantering a little bit well, but what's the reason? What's the excuse? The MRI. I love that, Phil, and I'll have you explain that. But Phil had brought up a veterinary mistake that's kind of a hot topic right now here in an ER practice in Spokane. Yeah,
Yeah.
bring everyone up to speed.
Yeah.
Listeners, you might already be familiar with it, but in
Yeah.
case you're not,
Yeah. And Beth, where did you said you heard about it? Where did you see it?
I saw
Just
it on
in
I
the
saw it on
circles?
social media. I think it was
Yeah.
in one of the like I'm in a DVM mom group, and I think
Right. Oh
someone in
yeah.
there
Yeah.
knew somebody that worked at the practice, and they were
Yeah.
kind of telling the story
Yeah.
from their perspective of people at the practice.
Yeah. So the long and short of the story is that this per so client goes in, needs, they end up having to euthanize their pet. Um they get home and open their phone, and on their phone are, kind of goofy faced selfies, from staff members. So the owner, which I think we can realize is distraught from the loss of her pet, gets home, sees behavior from the staff that is not correlating with what we would expect to be compassionate care. And in the post, somewhat fills in the blanks that these are uncaring, heartless people that would do this while she was going through that. More to the story, is that the person, the client had left the phone at the front desk. Someone thought it was an
yeah.
employee's phone. So, and I mean, I can say I think it's safe to say almost probably every doctor, most staff members have goofy cell phone pictures from when we leave our phones somewhere, and the staff grabs them and and does that. The
Yeah,
thing
an
here is that
unintended phone. I see my
unintended. Yeah,
brothers and their friends do it all the
right.
time. Somebody goes to the
Yeah,
bathroom when they're all hanging out and they left their phone. That's free
right.
game. So,
And I
yeah.
mean, I think the thing is the mistake itself is that I grabbed someone else's phone. Now, the other part, I mean, not to nitpick, like, because there's so much, and to your point, David, like, there's so much wrapped around this, so much emotion, and and all the things that are going through that. But like, if we get it down to its core, someone grabs someone's phone without being 100% sure whose it was to do something. And the other thing is the owner left, like, they left their phone there. I mean, not again, distraught, like all things, but that
And
they
it
didn't have their phone
wasn't
with.
password protected, for example. Like when you
I
pick
get,
up a phone,
Well, you can
yeah, I
access the
think
camera
you can
without the
take pic. Yeah,
passwords.
oh,
yeah,
that's
you can
true.
get the Yeah.
It's true.
And this is not, and so again, not victim blame, like trying to step away from it, and
Right.
I'll
Yeah.
bring this
Oh,
together. And so the post was that these I'm paraphrasing, but these heartless, uncompassionate people did this during, my moment of, which is
I
what, like,
completely get
understand.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
completely get that. But it is filling in blanks that I'm assuming that these people did that intentionally. And it is a horrible misstep. But it's, when I looked at it, I thought to myself, and the MRI is but running an MRI or most reasonable intent, is
Love that.
is it the most likely that these people, that all I think I'm throwing a number out there, I think maybe six people, at the clinic were, in selfies, that all six of those people, are sociopathic, heartless people. And it's like, no. And it's like, now those people, those 20 something year olds are getting death threats, like, as happens in social media, and this spirals down. Where I equate this, though, is like the level of a mistake is, we all have made medical errors, in veterinary
Mhm.
medicine. And, when I think about that, is that I can make the same error, but under it, it can have hugely different impacts depending on the other factors. And I think that's really what we have here. And it's just really interesting to see, because there's, a lot of calls for, you need to fire everybody. All those people need to be fired. And part of me, as someone who has lived on the grace and mercy, of others through my life, like, I don't know what the right answer is, but I think somewhere in the middle of a true, vulnerable, heartfelt apology, that understanding where that person is coming from and how horrible that must have looked, I think that's at least where we start. And I don't know if that's been done, but yeah.
So the post that I read, the only additional information is the veterinarian that performed the euthanasia, who was not involved in the photo taking, called the owner directly and
Mhm.
apologized.
Oh,
And then I
okay.
believe someone else, maybe in management, also called the owner to
Yeah.
apologize directly.
Okay.
Because then in the post that I read, there was like conversation about, like, should the practice owner also call? Because the person who put their pet to sleep was still posting things and, was still very upset. And so that's why she chimed
Yeah.
in and was like, well, we did call her directly. We did apologize, and she basically, once all of those people fired, which is what I think they were grappling with, like, what's the right thing to do there? They were going to have disciplinary action and they were all spoken to. And I think it was truly an innocent mistake. And I think one of the girls who took the photos did say that they thought it was a newer employee's phone
Yeah.
who they were trying to, like, connect
Right.
with. So, like, that was
Yeah.
the reason that they were doing it, which, again, like, horrible set of
Yes.
unfortunate events that led
Yeah.
to it being the phone
Right.
that it was.
My perspective and just who I am, if that had happened, if I was one of the employees, right, who's like, oh, let's get it, we got our phone, I would feel personally compelled not just to call, but I'd have to think through it. This is a reaction, not a response.
Yeah.
But go to that person's home and just say, I apologize. I made a huge error in judgment in doing this, and I did not know it was your, I would, or just a letter from the folks who were
Yeah.
involved saying,
Yeah.
bad timing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what comes around goes around, and I think if you accept that responsibility, those kinds of accidental mistakes happen, but you
Yeah.
own it and try and take responsibility for it because you put
Right.
that out there. Things are
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah.
And I
That's
mean, I
the
think,
hard.
go ahead, Kelly. Sorry.
Well, it's two-sided, right? So you have the people on the team, and then you have the owner of the animal, right? There's two players here. I'm gonna put them in a group. The hospital is like
Yeah.
one player, and then the pet owner is the other player. And the interesting thing is we all have free will. So we get to decide how we respond to something. We get to decide how we assimilate things. And I'm with you, David. Try to be as transparent as possible and own everything you want. But that also means trying to find something to come to the middle. That means the other player also wants to come to the middle. And the hard part is when the other player doesn't, in any situation, want to come to middle because they just want to be in an emotional place for a while, right? Like they just need to burn the emotion out. And that takes a while. And most of us can't sustain that level of emotion. It's not possible, but we all have different runways to run it out, right? And so sometimes like finding a mediator who can find both sides, who's a neutral party, right? Sometimes taking a break and just saying, we're just going to put this on ice for a little bit. Everybody take a breather, walk around the block, take a few days. But it's so easy to fuel the fire in the moment, and social media does not help with any of that. Like social media is like gas on a fire, and then now you don't have two players in the mix. You have the entire
Thousands,
internet
right?
in the mix, right? All the people who are involved in it. I mean, look at there's four of us now talking about it today, and
Yeah.
we weren't
And I
even
knew
there.
nothing about it 20
Right,
minutes
right.
ago.
Right? We did it. And so now there's four more in the mix and it's us, right? And so
Yeah.
then it just spreads like an oil slick on water. And it just has to kind of run itself out. And you can't keep fueling the social media or it won't run out. It will just grow.
So for the two of you practice, you're in it, you're with the team. Do you have protocols, whether they're written or just cultural within your team, that, hey, if a mistake is made, we're going to come together, we're going to talk about it, we're going to look at what we can learn from it. Do you have some of that, or just do it by leading naturally?
I think both, Beth.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I would say both. Like we have some protocols in place of like how we handle when mistakes are made and what accountability looks like for our team. That gives sort of like loose guidelines, and then we have core values and things, and we ask people to sort of walk with when they're working there. But when
Yeah.
things happen, I mean, our team is one that addresses things like right when they happen. So like if this was my team, there would have been like a big sit down, we would have talked through it. I probably would have, sort of encourage my team to reach out to
Yeah.
the owner directly because I feel like that is kind of the right thing to do. I truly don't know what I would do if they were calling for me to fire a bunch of my staff. I feel like I'd have a really hard time with that because even though this was a huge mistake, it was innocent. Like, I don't think it was malintended that I would have a
Right.
hard time
Yeah.
letting people go because of that. But like, that's where social media is very dangerous, that I feel like then it puts
Mhm.
you in this position of like, man, what do you do if the world is calling for you to fire them and they have their names and faces
Yeah.
and stuff? I truly don't know what I would do, but we
It'd
would
be different
definitely
if
hold
it
them
was the
accountable.
second or third time
And
too.
Right.
yeah. Yeah.
What about administration?
Um,
That's what a lot of bigger organizations do underneath the fire, or police stations. They're like, so and so has been placed on administrative leave.
Administrative leave.
Yeah.
yeah.
And then it allows them
And
that you did something, but it kind of tucks them out of the limelight for a while,
Yeah.
right?
It's presentation is everything. Spin, spin, spin. Oh, they're on
Okay.
administrative leave. Yeah.
and I think to Beth's point is there like we can't possibly anticipate every crazy
Mm-mm.
situation that has caused anger or caused these types of things in veterinary hospitals. Like we can, so just meaning that's why I was kind of saying both is like we can have general policies, but I think the main thing is if we have that North Star, and we at our practice, we talk about owning your part, is that, and not, and making that right sized, because the other thing is that we try to take on too much of the responsibility, sometimes is like, because somebody is really, really mad. And I'll speak for myself, is that when I was a younger veterinarian, if an owner or somebody was really, really upset, I just really thought I deserved that like I just took it, and I didn't realize that sometimes, people are seeing things through a different lens where I can own that I did, XYZ, or I had, throwing in that I had 30%, blame, or 30%, ownership of what went wrong here. But there were other factors that were outside of my control. And I think that's really the main thing, is that we don't single anybody out. And we also look at the system, and I think that's the thing as a leader, and it sounds like those leaders tried to do some of that, to get in front of it, and, and make an apology. But yeah, it's, I think it's really important from kind of wrapping it back into well-being, is just, it's easy for me to say this because I'm not personally involved in it, but I've been personally involved in some of these other things, and just really saying what is my actual part in this? Like, what do I have direct responsibility of, that I could have changed? Not that maybe it was this or maybe it was this, but like, actual, what did I do that I would have 100% done differently next time? And sometimes there isn't anything. And if I can really do that, it's like, then I can sit with that. And anyhow, it helps with self-compassion, is that I did the best I could with the information I had in front of me at the time. So that's a little bit of a ramble, but I think that, having that North Star of values, to look at, and that guiding light is really important in situations like this.
I
And I,
like that you have that, at least a system in place. I think so many practices don't even think about it.
Mm.
So when something does happen, they're making it up as they go along, because they
Yeah.
haven't given the energy to say, well, what if something happens? How are we going to learn from that, or take responsibility, or help whoever's on the receiving end of the mistake
Yeah.
deal with that as well?
Yeah.
I, I wish more
And I'll
practices
say,
did. Maybe they do.
yeah. And with mistakes too, I think the other, this isn't, I don't know that this would help in this situation, but another guiding principle we have is we say, as a leadership team, we never want to put a team member in a position of responsibility that we haven't given them the tools to be successful. And you'll see that by necessity. You get an employee that's been there 2 months, and they barely know the PIM system, or how to, where the bathrooms are yet, and you throw them into anesthetic monitoring because you need a warm body. And those are the situations that we really try to be conscious of, to do our best not to put somebody in a position where, then if they make a mistake, that's my fault. Like, that's not, they haven't been trained, they didn't get any of that. And if I do that, that's on me. But that person has to suffer the consequences that of my mistake, is that if a patient dies or something like that under anesthesia. So we do try to do that as well, as a guiding principle, is just try not to push people into, positions of
Avoid
responsibility
creating the
before.
mistakes to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah.
Having protocols,
yeah.
Yeah.
consistency, because that then allows you to operate within.
So
And I
going,
know Best Group does that really well too. So
Yeah.
sorry.
I was gonna say as well, like, I think when a mistake does happen, no matter whose fault it is, I honestly feel one of the biggest things of diffusing that is just clear, honest communication, whether it's within the team or with a client. And like, again, I don't know, I feel like in this specific situation, the client is so upset that even heartfelt apologies may not be
Right.
enough. But in the average situation where something happens, whether you dispense the wrong medication or make a mistake on a bill or whatnot, like myself and my practice manager, Kira, we deal with a lot of when there's been a mistake and there's a client who's upset. Like, we're the ones who end up dealing with them. And I feel like 90% of them are the person just wants to be heard and to feel like their opinion matters, or that we care that we made a mistake and that we're going to tell them what we're going to do differently to prevent that in the
Make sure that
future
doesn't happen
and
again.
or
Yeah.
right and or make it right for them.
Yeah.
So like a lot of times that's, maybe we give a little discount or maybe we, reimburse them for the wrong medication or what have you. I mean, things like that don't happen very often, but when they do, I feel like how you handle it in that moment, like that's one of our guiding principles too, is I try to do for my clients what I would want someone to do for me, like if I was in that
Yeah.
situation, which I think does really, really help. Just feeling heard and feeling like their opinion matters, and they're not just a number. Like I think that
Yeah.
makes a huge difference when someone feels upset, whether they're right or wrong in that situation. If they feel upset, sometimes just hearing them out
Yeah.
diffuses
Yeah.
it automatically.
What I was going to say in that other 10% with like when you have a social media storm, it's okay to bring in a public relation firm. There's
Oh
sometimes
yeah.
where it blows up past whatever skill set is available in the business or the practice at the time, and you need somebody or some buddies who know how to help you help yourself
Yeah.
during these times. Like, say this, don't say that. Like this will help, this will make it worse. Those expertise are okay to call to help you navigate a social media storm like of this magnitude, right?
And
And
it,
just go
uh,
ahead, David.
well, along those lines, I'm just sitting here thinking, putting myself in the client's position, and I could feel that. And everyone's different. For me, I wouldn't necessarily go post it internationally. I would mind, and I could see this happening, not just in this situation, but many of what tends to blow up. I don't use social media to communicate with people, but I could see somebody just telling their brother, sister, friend, oh, you wouldn't believe what they just did. And then that person's like, wow, that's insane. And suddenly they're sending it out. And it, may not have been the point zero that went, it may have been like, it went just one. And then suddenly it went, and now it's snowballs and goes
Right.
out of control. That may not be applicable in this situation, but I could see a mistake flying off out of no intent of the recipient or the doer. It's just other people get their hands on it and escalate it.
And that anger is such a strong emotion. It evokes that I have
It's
to do something. Like I'm not even, I'm in Florida, and I see something in Spokane, Washington, and then I read it and I'm just sitting having my coffee and I allow myself to,
feel both
get
sides. Yeah.
into this.
Mhm.
Well, or just me, like maybe I read this and be like, oh, I can't believe it. And it is somewhat of that, it feels good to be a little morally superior to our others, to other people. And
Mhm.
it's like we get we and this gets dicey because it's like, am I being self-righteous? And and I think you guys know I'm in recovery, and we really talk about justifiable anger. And there's a line in our literature that says justifiable anger ought to be left to the people who are better suited to handle it. And I like me and taking a shot of vodka. I try to just say I can't. I no longer can get involved in those things as best I can because I don't do well with it,
Mhm.
and so it's like, is it worth my energy, for my family and for my team and for all this to get involved in this particular situation? And that's just me personally, but
Right.
it is challenging because social media is like a drug, like anything else, and
Oh,
we
for
just get
sure.
hit with these moral situations where it taps into something, and then we feel emotion, and those emotions evoke action.
Yeah, but what
And
does it
the
do?
nature,
I ask myself that all the
right?
time. Sort of
Yeah.
like you feel
Who
like
does it serve?
personally,
Yeah.
Yeah.
personally, I
Yeah.
ask myself about situations like even off social media that may evoke emotion. And I'm like, well, if I have a reaction, an emotional reaction to whatever it is, what will my emotional reaction do? Like if it's just I need to go take a dog walk and work it off personally and burn it off, that's a me thing, right? But I'm trying to then tip somebody else's behavior. If I try to use my emotion to change their behavior, what is my purpose? Like what's like
Yeah.
I ask myself this because I'm like, well, what's their outcome? So all these people are upset online and they think their outcome is fire people. Okay, so then let's take it one step further. Let's say this group of people got fired. Then what? What does that
Yeah.
do for them? Like what? So we run this out and all we have is just a crap ton of emotion all over the place with no like what's the purpose? Like what's the win? And it just seems like to me personally from my viewpoint it's a whole bunch of losing all over the place
Yeah.
without a whole bunch of winning. So and I don't have the answer. I have a lot of questions and I'm just posing it out there to you guys. Is like do people get self-satisfaction for doing that? Or do they, like Phil, do they think they're emotionally superior? But what does that do?
I,
Like, honest to God, what does that do?
I think Beth said it. She said for and specifically for that person is that that person wants to be heard and validated. They want, and
Yeah.
that is absolutely 100% okay. Like, and that's really, really it. It's like if we can, and to Beth's point, like in maybe 90% of the cases, if we can do that and genuinely sit with that person and learn those skills of listening and hearing somebody and mirror back and understand where they're coming from and then say what can I do to make this right, or offering something and then say if I did this, would that be I'd like to do this, would that make it right for you, and just trying to own where we come from. But I think that really at its core, I mean, it also, I mean, we talk about well-being, but it comes back to mattering as a human being. Is I want to know that I matter in the eyes of somebody else. And it's like, if I see that, it feels like my suffering, you not only did you not, but a time in my life that I will always remember. I think all of us that have euthanized a pet, like we can remember. I mean,
Mhm.
from the time I was 15, I can remember every pet that I euthanized. And I remember that. And that person, during that moment, that person, not only didn't feel like they mattered, but that they were being mocked. And yeah, that's going to evoke a hell of a lot of, you know, deep emotion. And that person wanted to be heard. And I don't know if they got obviously they're still struggling with trying to
Yeah.
But
get
what about the
validation, but
people, not ground zero? I totally agree with you,
yeah.
ground zero. But what about all the people on the internet who jumped on their case?
Oh,
Like,
they got
what
it.
do
You
they
know,
get out of it?
they
Yeah.
gotta ask they really gotta ask themselves why like
Why am I doing this? Yeah. What
yeah,
am I gaining?
because yeah, what's to be gained?
Why do I need to
What's
be heard? I wasn't involved.
yeah,
Right.
right.
But
That's my
you're
question.
right about being heard, and I try to think about that a lot. And it always takes me back to that wonderful YouTube clip. And I just watched it at a conference the other day, but it's not about the nail. If you
Oh
haven't
yeah.
watched that, you should watch that. Just go on YouTube. It's not about the nail. It's about a 5 minute, brilliantly done
Yeah.
lesson in I want to be heard.
Mhm.
Um, because
I,
it's not about the nail.
Yeah.
And
I
it's
was
a good chuckle too.
the thing that I think social media makes really challenging is that when you are distanced from a situation, it's really, really easy to be way more extreme than you would be if you were
Yeah.
directly involved in that
Involved.
situation
Yeah.
because you're a, nameless face on the internet. You're never going to see those
Mhm.
people. You're never going to meet those people. So that's where I think people allow their anger and hatred to channel into having death threats for these poor vet assistants who made a mistake that they're getting death threats from people, which is like crazy. But what I can't understand the why because I don't have that much hate and anger in me, but I feel like some people do, and they just use it as a way to like inappropriately channel their feelings because they don't know how to appropriately channel them. And it's really easy to be horrible and
Yeah.
mean and nasty when you never have to look those people in the eye and say those things. Like one of my favorite quotes is, "It's hard to hate people up close." Because it
Mm,
is.
Mm.
It's very
yeah.
hard to hate people up close, but it is extremely easy to hate them from far away when you
Yeah.
can objectify the situation better because you're not in it and you can pass judgment on them without having all the facts or without ever having to be the one to stand in front of them and say those horrible things because you can hide behind your keyboard. So I truly don't understand the why, but I think that's some of the how it happens is because there's so much distance between people in the situation that they can just say horrible things.
Yeah, it's one thing to respond. That sounds like a really difficult situation to be in. I feel for you. Period. Hit return,
Yeah.
send. Versus, I can't believe they did that to you. That is so
Yeah. Right.
and having a reaction instead of understanding what that the person posted, wanting to be heard, maybe, and just two different ways to react or
And
versus
there's no,
respond.
yeah. And to Beth, and I would say to Beth's point is like in real life, if I mean, I just had this situation yesterday. Like I was the only doctor on. We're triple booked. I'm like, and I overhear a conversation that a technician is having with an owner, and I stopped my exam and I said, no, 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 it's this, 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 and she's like, I haven't finished my conversation, and then she went, and then she said like 10 seconds later, kept explaining and then said what I was going to say. I had to apologize to her. I'm like, because I jumped down her throat a little bit.
Yeah.
And I was
Good
like, I
for you to
really
recognize that.
well, but doing that online, like the impact that has on that
Right.
person, I don't, I go about my life and then it's like, hey, you were wrong about that. You called for that person's death, online and you were wrong. And
No
there's
accountability.
There's no
there's no accountability,
repercussions. Yeah. Yeah.
no repercussions.
Yeah.
And that's the challenge, because again, to Beth's point, we don't see that as another
So what
human being that
if
matters. Yeah.
there was this Uber layer on social media that tracked everything people did, and at the end of the month, you got this note saying, "Hey, we were watching, and you posted 1,200 times. 1,100 of those were negative. Do you know that's
Yeah.
what you're doing?" I
Yeah.
mean,
Right.
The
that's
negative
almost,
censorship police.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
Right.
called
Right.
creepy, but yes.
Yeah, that would be creepy. But I
Yeah.
think people do it without realizing that's what they're doing because nobody's holding them accountable. They
Right.
did it once, they forget about it, they move on to the next. It's like veterinarians giving discounts. You
Yeah.
discount this one, you move on to the next, and you don't realize how many other clients you've given discounts. Tying it back to finance because everything is grounded
It's,
in, in practice.
That's right.
it's all well-being in finance nowadays. Ball bearings. That's from Fletch. It's all bell.
But yeah, nobody's tracking it.
Yeah.
And so
But the reality is you should be tracking it. You need to be sovereign. You
as
need to be
individuals doing it,
responsible
yeah.
Yes. Yes.
and monitoring your own emotions and reactions because you are you. Nobody else should, we're supposedly all adults here, right? We're the ones who should be watching our behavior and how we treat others. And
Yeah.
it boils down to are you or aren't you? And that's where it should lie, because like
Yeah.
Phil, you took responsibility for your mistake because you internally went back and went, wow, I overstepped there. I need to do something about it.
Mm.
But only you could do that. I couldn't do it for you. Beth couldn't do it for you. You had to do it for you, right? And you had to monitor that and have the realization for that. And that's on all you. Um, and I think it's also all on us to make sure that people do feel heard and mattered, that we engage with and interact with, and make sure we take a moment to make sure, like, I use paraphrasing a lot, and I'm not saying I'm always 100% about this, but because I'm dyslexic, I always want to make sure I understand whatever everybody else is saying. But that, because my dyslexia is mostly audio, so I hear weird crap sometimes. That makes no sense. So I want to make sure I'm understanding people. But I always don't want to do that because it's exhausting and it takes extra work, right? And some days I just want it to be about me, but we all have these responsibilities. So how do we wrap this up, by the way? Anybody?
Well,
Mm.
everybody, it's easy. Just be self-aware and do better. I mean, avoid the mistakes, accept responsibility, be self-aware, and do better next time.
I forgot. I forgot it's glued down. Be curious, not judgmental.
Yeah,
There,
So
yeah,
There
that's
that's
we
it.
good.
there
go.
it is.
On
That's
that
the
note, thank you for
Thank you.
listening.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We
Be
really,
curious, not judgmental.
that's right. And we look forward to being in a listening device to you soon. Thank you
And
very
it's
much.
not about the nail.
That's right. Look it
Hmm,
up.
I'm gonna watch
look
that.
it up.